Slava Isusu Christu. We continue our series on a Modern Day Martyr, on the life of Blessed Vasyl Velychkovsky. Today I'd like to share the story of the transfer of his holy relics. As I mentioned, the coffin was buried 29 years, over 29 years. And the ground was wet. So in the coffin, we opened the coffin, we saw, well, depending on what you looked at, but you saw the silk that was one time nice, lily white, now all black and stringy, and it was, dirty. His vestments were darker than what they would. They were gold when they were buried with, but they were like a darker gold, darker, almost brown. A bishop, when he is buried with what's called elityon, the chalice veil over his face. That's the custom in our church for priests and for bishops to be buried that way, with holy oil spilled on the face. And so we did not see his face immediately, but what we did see was his hands holding a hand cross, which we have here in our museum. And his hand was like my hand, flesh-colored, all the hair follicles and fingernails, and we all gasped in wonder, crossed ourselves. Many of us went and we kissed his hand or kissed the cross that he was holding, knowing that we were on holy ground, knowing that we were before already God's miracle of having his fully intact body before us. We were all in wonder, including the doctors. His body was lifted out of the coffin, placed on a gurney where it was to be examined. We had to unvest him. The vestments were dirty with mud and wet with water. Those were taken to be cleaned by some women. When they tried to clean him with cold water, they all just fell apart. Even carrying in the coffin to St. Boniface, already a handle fell off. By the end of the day, that coffin was as if it went through fire. You could poke your fingers through what was metal, but now like rusty, burnt metal. We unvested him. The doctors had to examine his holy body. Dr. Belisandre was in awe looking at this holy, fully intact body of Blessed Vasyl. He examined it. Some details, his nose was pressed in by the chalice veil. The ears also were pressed against the skull, but the rest was him, just like he was buried, flesh-colored. We were all in wonder, and this was all being recorded on paper. We had to have it written down, what was quite easy. Their job was the doctor's job was to name all the bones you find. Well, they had no naming because it's a fully intact body. So he just described the body and how well it was and what good shape it was. But as we were undressing Blessed Vasyl to examine the whole body, when we came to the socks, one of the doctors said, "Oh, we have some bones here." And I was very happy because my job there, the main person who was in charge of the cause of saints from Rome, Father Marazzo from Rome, was to come and be in charge of this whole process. But he could not come that day. He was called to the Vatican for another meeting, and so he called me about a few days before all this and says, "Father John, I'm putting you in charge, and here's the document that you are now the postulator for this moment." And one of my jobs was to see that everything is done properly, and also that to collect relics. And so what do you do when you have no bones? Maybe a bit of the beard and stuff. But so then I learned later on that his feet were frozen in prison, and his cousin said that they were even dark black already in life. And so one can say his toe bones were dead before he was even. And so they had fallen off. There was 13 toe bones that had come off. So I was very happy with that. They were cleaned, and then the bones were given to me. So we took this opportunity at the same time to create third-class relics. I had bought in a big vat of cloth, which we placed upon his holy body, over his heart, over his chest. We said prayers that God would bless this cloth through the intercession of Blessed Vasyl and make it a third-class relic. Third-class relics are things that have been touched to the first-class relics. So that cloth has been used, has been cut up into thousands and thousands of third-class relics, which we have used since that day. That evening I called Rome to see what should we do since we have a fully intact body. And they said, to preserve it as best as you can. Contacted the funeral directors, and they brought a chemical which they placed over his body, like a grainy substance, and then we wrapped the whole body with cotton cloth like a mummy. Beginning on Tuesday morning, we did that. And after that, we vested him with new vestments provided to us by the Sister Servants of Mary Immaculate. And the Metropolitan Bisdel offered a ring for his finger, a panagia and a pectoral cross and a hand cross that he had in the coffin. So we revested him all the way, and also we put again a cloth over his face as he was buried. I mentioned that the stainless steel container was 68 inches by 21 inches. When I measured Blessed Vasyl on Monday evening, fearing that he would not fit into this container from head to his toes, he was 67.5 inches. From his elbow to elbow, though, he was 24 inches. What do you do? The container is 21. But by God's grace, the shoulder joint, the elbow joints, the wrists and the fingers were all mobile. So I was able to take, although the body was as stiff as a board, I was able to take his hands and to move them from the side as they were normally to put him over top on this way here over his body. As you can maybe see in the image over here where he is fully vested, covered with the cloth, holding the panagia, and his hands are usually they're like this, but he is down in front of his body. So when we placed his holy body into the stainless steel container, brought it to our place here where a welder was there to meet us, and he welded the top onto the stainless steel container. The next day we put the silk ribbon over it, and the bishop came and placed his wax seal on the ribbon as a sign that it should be cut or opened until permission from the church is given. Then we began the actual transfer. That is, we took the body, the holy relics. It was with the Sister Servants of Mary Immaculate for several days. And then on Friday evening, we transferred it to the cathedral, St. Vladimir's in Olga, where we had a program right through until Sunday morning. Friday evening, a concert, a festive concert in his honor, singing and some talks. And then parishes, groups came in all evening, all night, all day Saturday, all the Saturday night until Sunday morning to come and pray before his holy relics. On Sunday morning, we went to St. Vladimir's in Olga, where we started with a Malaban service. Then we transferred his relics, pulling it on a wagon, a covered wagon from the cathedral, 3.5 kilometers here to St. Joseph's Church, where we had a pontifical liturgy with many bishops and priests. We can see them a little bit on this lower image, all the bishops, and there was many priests who had come from all over, and around over 2,000 faithful that took part in the procession, the bringing of the holy relics to St. Joseph's Church, into his shrine chapel, where now he is there, where people can come to the shrine chapel and to be before this holy martyr and to ask for his intercession. And has become, since that time, the last 20 years, a very holy place where thousands and thousands of pilgrims who have come over the years. Last night, there was a woman from the Philippines who had come to say some prayers before Blessed Vasyl, and she was returning today back home and told me that there was a great following in the Philippines of devotees to Blessed Vasyl praying for his canonization. that he would one day be declared a saint in our Ukrainian Catholic Church and for the whole universal Catholic Church. Slava Isusu Christu. Glory be to Jesus Christ.